Welcome to Royal Legacy, where we will explore the rich athletic history and deep family connections of BYU sports. Join us as we honor the past, celebrate the present, and look forward to the future of the BYU Cougars. Here's your host, Lauren McClain.
How's it going, everyone? I'm Lauren McClain, and welcome to Royal Legacy, where we dive deep into the family connections of BYU sports. Joining me today are husband and wife, former BYU and NFL tight end Chad Lewis, who is currently the Associate Athletic Director of Development for BYU Athletics, and former BYU Women's Volleyball All-American Michele Lewis. Both have been inducted into the BYU Hall of Fame and Utah Sports Hall of Fame. They have 7 children and almost 5 grandchildren. Yes. Is that right? Thank you guys so much for being here with me.
Thanks so much. Great to be here.
Good to have you. So being a parent is awesome. But Michele, how is it being a grandparent?
Oh, it's even awesomer. I love it so much. It's so much fun. It's just total joy. It's really like our children are so great. It's so hard, but it's so worth it. But then the grandkids come, and it's never hard. It's just amazing all the time.
Is it because you can give them back? Is there something to that? People always say that. Being a grandparent, you can be the fun one, and then you just give them back to their parents. Is that how you feel, Chad?
It's cool. It's so much fun. They've got personality. Like for Christmas, we had everyone over, and to see these little kids come in, the excitement for Christmas from a little kid is like, it's Christmas again. It's really cool.
That's so fun. Do you guys feel that old, or does it feel like you were just making catches and winning WAC championships? Like, is that just bizarre that you're grandparents?
Oh, yeah. We're still college age as far as in my mind.
That's how
we're getting younger every day. That's what we're doing.
Great mindset. You were both positive and upbeat leaders as players and praised by your coaches as such. People your teammates looked up to. You raised 7 kids. How did you decide who got to be the positive and upbeat one and who had to be the one that got down to business and was the disciplinarian? Chad, we'll ask you first.
Oh, good question. I think it's been a team event the entire time. I think we've bounced well off each other. We are always talking. Our kids are always around. We have good relationships with our kids. We can talk about any subject with them. Like nothing's off limits, and I think they're comfortable in any situation, really. They never really clam up and look at us like, you guys are grandparents. It's been cool. I don't know. Michele, what do you think?
Well, Chad's naturally the positive, energetic personality, and so I think our kids love that when he'd come home from work and he'd bring so much energy into the home and so much fun. But also when something needed to be done or changed or corrected with our children, if he said it, it was very meaningful. Mm-hmm. I think since they were around me all the time, mm-hmm. If I really needed something to take place, I'd say, Chad, can you mention this to so-and-so? And it usually worked.
And when it comes from the dad that, that's usually like, hey, the happy-go-lucky, you're like, oh, my gosh, I got to listen.
It's serious business.
So when everything was so chaotic, Chad, because, Michele, you mentioned that even when they were chaotic, he kept a good, positive attitude. How were you able to do that? Because I'm sure you had so many other stresses going on in your life at the time.
There's a lot of stresses, and they pile up and they multiply. Just the other day, Michele reminded me to stay positive. When I had a quick response to something, she's like, hey, you got to be who you are, be positive, and which is true. When I came home from my mission, I would say, as I was walking on the football team, this is the greatest day of my life. And people would be like, why? What happened? I'm like, it's Thursday. Let's go, man. And that was so much of what I learned as a missionary. My outlook changed. I definitely matured as a person. And I would say that carried me through my football career big time by focusing on positive stuff. Mm. Even when times were really, really tough. And my scripture reference to this was the sons of Helaman when they were fighting and they were about ready to be conquered. And it says that these 2,000 stripling warriors were firm and undaunted. And when I read the story, I don't know how many times that had been that I read that story, those 2 words jumped out at me. And so I kind of latched onto those words. They were firm and undaunted. They weren't walking around crying and moping. And so in football games, when there was a fumble or an interception or something really bad, it was my trigger to remember those guys. Be firm and undaunted right now when it matters most. That was very helpful. But So I think we're a very good team, and I love it when Michele reminds me, hey, buddy, you still got to smile and be happy because there is always tons going on. So I love it.
And you kind of feel like, Michele, like you got to play your part. Like that's what you do. Is that when you remind him those things? Is that kind of what you're telling him? Like,
yeah. And life doesn't get easier the older you get. It doesn't get easier just because you're grandparents. It gets more full, so much more to be a part of and to contribute to. And so when I feel like he's in a situation now where there's so much coming at him. And our kids now are ages 16 to 28. And so 7 kids in those ranges, those young people from our daughters and our sons and their spouses are making huge decisions right now. Like life-changing decisions that will take them one way or another. We're kind of planted in our place where we are here in Provo Norm, and I watched them making these huge decisions and how important that is and how stressful that can be. I hope that they can feel that same way and know that if they just stay firm and undaunted, life is going to work out just fine. Just stay with it. Stay with the gospel. Stay with what you know to be right. Just have integrity. Stay honest. And those life plans become better and better as you get older.
I love that advice. That's incredible. And how crazy to have a teenagers that you're raising, and then you got these older kids with, oh man, that's parenting all over the place.
To watch grandkids love their uncles and aunts like our grandkids do, it brings us just as much joy as anything in this whole world.
Incredible. You both ended up having legendary athletic careers. Chad, you're considered one of the best walk-ons in BYU football history, one of the best tight ends, part of the team that won the 96 Cotton Bowl. You met and married your wife, went on to have a great NFL career, 7 kids. When you look back, what was the impact of that one decision to choose to go to BYU when you were 18?
It changed my life. It was I was first admitted before my mission. Jim Fossil was the head coach of the University of Utah. My brother was playing up there, and I was a young graduate of high school. And he said, I know you're admitted to BYU, but don't go there. If you go there, you will love it, and you'll never come to the University of Utah. So why don't you go to UVSC for 1 year and take 11 credits so your eligibility clock will not start. Go on your mission. When you come home, you'll have 5 years to play for. And I said, okay, I'll do that. I didn't have any other coaches asking me to do that. And as a missionary, I decided I am going to BYU. I'm not going to play football. I'm just going to go to BYU. So I enrolled at BYU, was accepted, came home, started going to school. Really quickly, I walked on to the track team as a high jumper because I thought, I'm paying school for myself. I need to somehow get a scholarship. And I was a low jumper more than a high jumper. And so within a couple weeks, I walked on to the football team, and the rest is history. Long story, but it worked. It was so much fun. I earned a scholarship that first season and paid for school. So the decision to come to BYU changed my life in every way. The most meaningful way was coming here and meeting Michele, and we got married. We have 7 amazing kids. That decision, I look at coming to BYU and meeting Michele as the same, and totally changed my life. The best trajectory I couldn't have paid for a better life gift. It was perfect for me. I look at that like that is God's plan in my life. It's a perfect plan, and I'm so grateful for it. So,
and I know you've told your story a lot of times, but I think, different people listen. I just think it's such an inspirational story of how you've accomplished everything that you have. And Michele as well, you were part of BYU's first ever Final Four appearance, All-American WAC Player of the Year. It's crazy you two found each other. I just got to throw that out there. But what stands out to you the most when you think of your time at BYU?
Oh, just relationships. I loved my team. I loved being part of the BYU atmosphere and the athletic department. And Coach Michaelis is a legend. She was just so into all of us. We were her family. We were her everything. And you felt that she was a preparer, a planner. And one of her biggest strengths was preparing for every match, and that's what made us so good. Our preparation was number one in her mind. And I feel like we carry that over into our lives. You know, anything we want to have success in must require preparation. Don't expect anything to happen by chance or just by winging it. It's got to be prepared. I want this to happen in my life, so I got to think about it. I got to try. I got to work for it, and good things happen. And I think that's part of my BYU learning experience, was just knowing that I need to prepare.
And one thing super cool that I read about you is you talked about how integrity became more important to you than winning did. So how did that become something that you wanted to stand up for?
I had a teammate named Tamua Matu'u. She's from American Samoa. She went by Mookie. And my freshman year, she was a freshman as well. She was starting. I was on the bench. And a girl from San Diego State, Gracie Shute, came up, All-American player. Mookie's job was to block Gracie. And so Mookie went up. Ball went flying out of bounds. We were all cheering. The whole Smith Fieldhouse was going crazy. We were excited. And all of a sudden, Mookie looked up at the official and said, "Hey, I touched that ball," which means point San Diego State, you know. And I was shocked. I'd never seen that before in all my years of playing. And I thought, that's integrity. I want that. I want that to be part of my life. And so our team kind of started making that tradition that we'd call our own touches. Now they have video, replay and all that. We didn't have that back then, but we would shock opposing fans and officials when we would say, "Hey, I touched that," and then they'd have to give the point back to the other team. And I just thought that's such a great example. I don't think it ever caused us to lose a match. It only caused us to gain respect, and I loved that consequence. And I just think, anything that's worth it in life is not worth it by cheating. It's not worth it by, faking something that you're not. You just go for it, do the best you can, and it all works out.
That's so cool. And those types of small decisions are so much more impactful in your life than even winning. Even if it did cause you to lose, but so much more impactful.
Exactly.
You guys just seem like you're two peas in the pod back in your playing days, too. Chad, I know you guys met in the athletic training room. You decided to ask her out a few weeks later. The rest is history. But what was it about Michele that made you think she was someone you really wanted in your life?
Very friendly, very nice, very beautiful. And as soon as we started talking more and more, it was like, man, I want to take her out. And so when we finally went out, for me, it was total joy. I just felt it. The second we first started going out, it was so great. She did have other people that were wanting to date her, and so I had to like fight for it, which is a lesson in life. I was definitely going to fight for it. I definitely wanted very, very bad to be with her. And it was a feeling I had inside of me 100%, and I'm so grateful for that. I read a book a long time ago about when you get the thunderstroke, meaning when you really love someone, you're going to feel it, and there's no question about it. I had it, and I'm super grateful for that feeling, and that feeling has never left me. I'm not ever going to let it leave me, and I love that Michele has been, like you said, two peas in a pod. In everything that I'm doing, she's always there. I'll give you one dramatic example that could be negative. In pro sports, you are going through a lot of injuries and a lot of pain. Michele cared about me so much, she wanted to make sure everything I was taking for the pain was legit. The last thing she wanted was for me to go in the pros and get addicted to something. So she cared about my medicine. She would say, "Hey, what is that? She was not asking that to nag. She was asking that because she cared about me and our family so much. She was very concerned about anything that I was taking. She didn't want that to ruin me.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people in the pros who have been ruined by stuff like that. That's one of her examples of how much she loves our family, how much she loves me. And I would say that's different than a story most people would hear. To me, that's also integrity.
Absolutely.
That's part of Michele.
And I'll say I'm glad he fought for me, and I'm glad that he has that perspective, because there were times when I would look over his shoulder like, "What are you taking?" that he was kind of bugged.
Yeah.
Like, why is she nagging me? Why doesn't she trust me? But that's part of, we've been married 30 years now, and part of that is just figuring each other out
Mm-hmm.
and being willing to give the other person the benefit of the doubt. And so it's not, it's not like our marriage has been amazing for 30 years. It's a lot of those things of working together, working through things, talking, communicating, and then always trusting that, oh, he actually wants what's best for me. And that's why he's doing this. And so I think it has been wonderful. It's so grateful that we met here at BYU. I almost went to the University of Nebraska, and our kids found that out, and they were like, "Oh, Mom, what have you had?"
We wouldn't even be here, Mom. You made that choice.
But yeah, I mean, we just trust God and know that everything is in His hands, and we just try our best to do our best and to be our best, and then the rest of it is made up for.
I love that you pointed that out because, I mean, a lot of people could look at you too and be like, oh, they have this beautiful family, beautiful marriage. And I like that you mentioned how much work it takes to have that type of marriage and family. It's not like it's been perfect.
Anything
and
good takes
you bug
work.
each other
Yep.
sometimes,
That's right.
But you learn and you make it work. And I think that's what's so awesome is you guys are incredibly hard workers, which I'm sure is something you learned from growing up in sports too. One of the beauties of sports. But Michele,
So true.
I want to know what was it about Chad? You had multiple men after you. What was it about Chad that made him rise above everybody else?
Oh, well, his energy, his optimism. I was very attracted to just how positive and upbeat he always was, whether it was with friends, his parents, his family, me. In fact, he loved to give people the high five bro handshake. And so when we were first dating, he would give me the high five bro handshake. And I had to tell him, okay, I love that you do it with your friends. How about we give each other a little hug when we see each other? Because he was so pumped, it's like, whoa.
I love it.
Yeah. And I loved that he loved his mission. I loved it that, his mission wasn't amazing, awesome, it was hard, but he loved it. He loved the hard. And his testimony of Jesus Christ was number one for me. I cared that he cared because I truly believe if we follow the teachings of Jesus Christ, things work out in life and things are going to be okay. And so, we're different. I'm way more reserved. He's way more outgoing. But together we figure it all out, and we still do. I mean, we're in our 50s and we're still figuring it out, but it's so much fun together.
What? We're in our 50s? Wait a minute.
Did you say that out loud? That's crazy.
Yeah,
you guys.
I just love it. I loved him, loved just everything about him. He did have to work a little bit. I went out with the other guy to a movie, didn't have a great experience, and I came home to a plate of cookies that Chad had brought over, homemade cookies that said, "Either way, I think you're the greatest." I still have that card. I still have it, and I just that was like the deal breaker. He's the one I want. So it was, from then on, it was 6 days before his birthday, October 5th, and so I called him up that night. Hey, could I take you out for your birthday? And it's been.
I said, yeah, let's go.
It's been the two of us ever since.
You gave her a bro handshake. And,
No, big hug. Big hug.
There you go, big hug.
Big hug, little kiss, big hug. Nacho Libre.
That's right.
Oh, I love it. And you guys end up obviously getting married. You start a family, and I'm sure life was crazy. Chad, how were you able to focus on football and your achievements on that side and then have the energy for home life?
That's exactly how I was able to do well in football, in my opinion, is we had a great home life. And we were solid together. We loved our kids and definitely loved work as well. Certainly loved playing for Andy Reid and the Philadelphia Eagles. It was so much fun. It was a ton of work, ton of pressure that never went away. And you just learn how to deal with that pressure and learn how to figure out how to make it work. You got to make plays in the pros or in any sport. If you make plays, you can stay on the team. If you don't make plays, it doesn't matter how cool your story is, doesn't matter what your relationship is with the coach, it doesn't work. So the fact that I could make plays was how I was able to – that was one of the ways I was able to earn respect with my coaches and teammates, and then everything else made it really strong. This whole conversation we're having about family, sports, reminds me of President Holland's kind of recent social media post about staying in the boat. Elder Ballard's talked 10 years ago. And he says, if the gospel is the boat, stay in the boat. Well, I think marriage is the same thing. Stay in the boat. Mm-hmm. How do you stay in the boat? Every decision you make helps you stay in the boat. Everything you do is important. And I love Elder Holland's. He's the greatest teacher that's ever. He's one of the greatest teachers on planet Earth. And the way he says that reminds me of marriages, reminds me of commitment to Jesus Christ. In these trying times, we're being attacked in every way. And he's saying, hey, don't worry about any of the attacks. Remember what's most important. Christ is the most important. Stay in the boat. Mm-hmm. When the rocky seas are the rockiest, don't jump out into the crazy waters. Tighten up your life preserver and stay in the boat. I think that's exactly the same thing is true for marriages. You fight for each other. You stay in the boat and you make it work. And don't just make it work, you make it great.
Yeah. So
Michelle's made it great all these years. I've fought to make it great. Our kids also fight to make it great. And that's worth it. That's worth it.
That's so cool and so powerful, and a good reminder to myself, who was married with a couple children.
Yeah, you're in the thick of it.
Yeah, I'm in the boat, but I don't always make it great for my husband. Yeah, I'm going to change that. Michele, you taught high school math after college, and you started having kids. There had to be a change of pace for you. And I know that's a conversation I have a lot with these former athletes, is how difficult that can be to be, this phenomenal athlete. And that's what you do day in and day out. And then it stops. And for everybody, every athlete, at some point, it has to stop. But what was that transition like for you and that change of pace?
It was hard because I went from, in 1 year, getting all these awards, being all WAC and Final Four and Michelle Fellows and the volleyball player and All-American, and literally that same year becoming Mrs. Lewis at American Fork High School, who dealing with all these high school kids who I actually loved that part of teaching. I like math. I love teaching high school kids. And even now I find myself just grasping to teenagers. There's something about teenagers that are so fun. They have so much excitement in life. And I love that part of teaching, but I was no longer the volleyball player that I was for 8 or 9 years growing up, getting all sorts of attention and awards. And so it was hard. He was then becoming a sophomore, getting a lot more of the limelight. I was in the shadows. I wasn't used to being in the shadows. A couple years later, we had Emily, our first child, and then I was full-time mom. I finished teaching school the year we had her, and soon had another child, and then I'm like in the depths of changing diapers, cleaning up, throw up, feeding. Like, if you ask any young moms, one of the biggest chores I feel like is feeding your children, knowing how to best give them nutrition without them even wanting any sort of thing besides chicken nuggets and mac and cheese, It's like, but it's so worth it. And I would tell any young mom that's listening to this, you're doing so great. The chance that you have to raise this child with your husband, hopefully, and if not, that's okay too, of just loving them, being patient with them. If it's just mac and cheese every day, that's okay. Just keep going. It's so worth it. All of the late night feedings, early morning wake ups and cries, and they're crying and you can't get them to stop crying. You just love them. Just be patient. It is so worth it. And I think that Heavenly Father and his angels, our angels, are looking over those young moms in the middle of the night or in the afternoon when everyone's grumpy, or you are protected. You're there doing a purpose and a meaningful thing that is way more important than any award you can get from sports or from your husband's job. There's all sorts of awards out there and prestige and bonuses, and moms don't get any of that. But I think that their reward is more profound and more eternal, more important than any of these worldly awards that are given out.
That is so powerful, and I 100% agree. I think I was meant to do this interview today, you guys, because just last night when my 3-year-old, I'm like, you will eat it wasn't broccoli. I don't even remember what it was, right. But all he wanted was mac and cheese or nuggets. So now I'm just going to give it to him. I'm going to say, Michele said I could.
That's right.
And there's angels watching me and hopefully giving him some nutrients, right?
Somehow it works out.
It does work out. Sports is obviously a huge part of your lives. Chad, how important was it for you and Michele to instill the things you learned from sports into your own children?
Whew. So much of sports is not winning and losing. It's how you do it, how you prepare, how much energy you bring into your game, the contest, whatever. And so we, at our kitchen table, we've talked about this stuff all the time. We watch sports. We really enjoy watching games together. And when we watch games together, we're always talking about decisions that coaches make and why, decisions that players make and why. And if a person gets subbed out, we watch that person. Is that person hanging his head and complaining and crying and sitting grumpy, or is he still into the game helping his teammates? And we watch and discuss all that kind of stuff. So the rhythm of sports is like, it's part of us. We feel it. We see how the ball moves in the air. We know how it's going to bounce just by the rotation of the ball. That's how God put us together that way, and we love that part of sports. Our son Jeff has just started with the BYU football team. He's an offensive lineman, so we talk about all this stuff. It's been really cool. Sports, great metaphor for life, but it's life.
Yeah.
I mean, it's real stuff. Your body you're in harm's way. You have to do the technique that you're taught to be successful and be safe. So it's been really cool. I hope that made sense.
It did make sense, and I 100% agree. Everything that happens in sports, you can relate to life. Michele, are you guys competitive with each other? You have more of a laid back personality, but
yeah,
do you guys compete? Have you competed throughout your life?
We're kind of careful not to. I feel like there's been times where we'll just, even if it's ping pong or something, we definitely want to win. But once we walk away, it never carries over. It's not that we care that much.
Yeah.
Our kids care way more. Our boys are very competitive with each other to where it can linger for a few hours. Then they fight, and then they're okay. But
you got to love that about boys.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, what Chad was saying reminded me just a few nights ago when the BYU men's basketball, I don't know when this is going to air, but BYU men's basketball team was playing at the Marriott Center. Yegor has kind of had a rough time. Mm-hmm. Fans are kind of wondering, he's not getting a lot of points. And it'd been like a whole half, and maybe in the middle of the second half, he didn't have any points. He's, and he hits a three, I think it was. It might have been that. Dallin Hall is more pumped than I think anyone in that entire arena, and probably even watching on TV. He was so excited for his teammate. And that's one thing I love about sports is you see someone that's genuine. And here Dallin's kind of lost his point guard position, and yet he was so pumped for that teammate. And I just, that gives me chills. I just love it. That's part of life.
Yeah. Be
pumped for each other. Help each other out. Be a team. That whole metaphor to me, and it just pumps me up. It makes me excited. It makes me want to be more like that in my own life. I'm not playing basketball.
And Dallin Hall, because he hit those two pressure-packed three-point shots that swished, he won the game. And so the fact that he did what he did with Yegor, and then he did what he did by hitting those shots, is not independent of each other. It's the same. He brought the juice to the game. He brought the juice to his teammate. And you could tell that Dallin was locked in the right way the whole game.
Yeah.
And so it was no accident that when we were now only up by 3 and all the momentum was gone and he stepped up and ripped those two shots, that's what won the game. And when as a team and as a person you're locked in like that, that's sweet. I think it's the exact same with families. When it's easy to be distracted by a million things in our lives and be looking off that way and hearts that way, but when you're locked in, everything good happens. So it's a reminder, stay locked in, stay in the boat, come on, come back.
And I think it goes hand in hand with the integrity thing that you were talking about as well. Sometimes you think, man, if I tell them I touch this, we're going to lose the game. It does the opposite thing. If you say, hey, this person who's in my same position if I help them out, they're going to get better than me.
Great point.
But it's the opposite of that.
It's the opposite.
You grow and you achieve more that way. So I love that. My last question for you guys, because I just think it's so cool. Your daughter Emily ended up marrying a tight end at BYU, Matt Bushman. Was that, and then he goes to the NFL, plays for the Chiefs, plays for Andy Reid. Was that a weird full circle moment for you guys? Like, what is that like for you?
It's amazing. It's like it continues. We had 2 daughters first. Emily and Matt have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. And they're about to have a boy, which was the same thing as us.
Oh,
I'm
my
like,
gosh.
oh, my gosh.
Crazy.
Poor Matt. He's like, wow, do I really have to be in Chad and Michele's shadow forever? But he's so awesome. We just love them. The similarities are just, they continue. It's crazy how many similarities there are. But most importantly, Matt and Emily are just good people. They just work hard. They're just trying to live the gospel, to be good people in their community. In Kansas City, he's running an assisted living home there, and he's in the grind, and he is doing his best. He's a great dad. It's just so much fun to watch them.
Yeah, I would like to say this about we have 2 sons-in-law, Matt Bushman, Chad Pollard, and a daughter-in-law, Kiara. And I would say I always wondered what it would be like to have people marry into our family. And I will say it's 100 times better than I ever expected. I love them. I love these guys and Kara. I love their influence on our kids. I love their personalities. I love their families and the whole thing. It's the greatest thing ever. It's amazing. It's also a reminder to me, no wonder why Satan attacks families. That's where you have joy, and that's where you have joy forever. And it's a reminder, like, that's our most precious, our families, those relationships. That's what life is worth fighting for.
Amen to that. I'm here with Chad and Michele Lewis. You guys are incredible. Thank you so much for taking the time with me. You're just amazing people. So I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks again to Michele and Chad Lewis for coming on the show with me. Tori Kimball helped produce this episode with senior producer Terry South. You can join the Royal Legacy wherever you get your podcasts, on Apple, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spotify, or on BYUradio.org. Royal Legacy is a production of BYU Broadcasting.